friends, and welcome back to the Rally Cry halftime show. It was a great series to start things off. I knew that it was going to be a fun one considering these two teams. Definitely had me on my toes, but now we just got to waste a little bit of time while the players...
Waste! This is our podcast.
Have y'all not seen Twitch chat? The start game, start game.
We specifically withhold the game from you guys so we can listen to ourselves talk.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. You know, we tell them, you want to play League?
No, stop.
Never.
That's not what this show's about.
All right, well then we are making the players wait so we can just talk about them a little bit. Gosh darn it! All right, and we're gonna go for a most likely to. So I feel like this is a pretty important series on our hand. So we're going to talk about what we expect to see out of our game 2 and maybe our game 3 a little bit and just the future of these two teams, all right?
Okay.
All right, so first off, in our game 2 or 3, who's most likely to get first blood?
Mir.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say too.
Because Mir insane, Mir good.
I mean... So Mir does a couple of things. One, he actually has like a 50% first blood rate. Like it's I don't know if it's that high, but it's like something like approaching that.
Something egregious.
Yeah, and the big thing about that is because he goes for so many plays down in the bottom lane early on in the game that even if he's not getting the first blood himself, he's going to be involved in it.
I mean, we know that Mir would be happy, especially on a champion that enables that early gameplay. So if the draft leans like in that direction, then I expect Mir to bring that power to one of the lanes and get some first blood action.
All right, well, if Mir's going to get the first blood, then next question, who's most likely to be his victim? Who's going to be that first blood?
Oh. Breezy.
Oh, yeah, I was like, either Meech or Breezy. It would have to be somebody from the bot lane.
We can split here, Gabby, so that we're more likely to work together.
Meech.
All right. There you go. I mean, I feel like these questions are easy, Sierra.
We're just hating the game.
Yeah, like you say they're easy, but then all of a sudden, if it's Breezy that gets first, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Like every single time, we don't have to play the game of League of Legends. We just reason it through and like, yep, that's it. That was a good game.
Yeah.
Why do we have this gameplay on our screen?
Why do we ever have to go into Summoner's Rift? We just know the
We know how it's gonna go.
All right, my bad, guys. I will try and do some questions. Apologies. Who's most likely in their next game to pick a 2v1 yet win?
And win?
Yep. Is that a little harder for you, Joshi? Like
that is a little harder. Because who will actually opt into a 1v2?
I think
it will be Copy.
Yeah.
It feels like a good one.
I feel like it would be Copy, especially, and I feel like that is the crucial part of it,
like who would opt into a 1v2? And I think it is the players who would do that, I think, are most likely going to be Bradley and Copy has had a much better win rate in those situations.
Yeah, that feels right. And because I could really see, I can see the highlight in my head, the replay.
Like exactly what you said. Why do we bother going on to Summoner's Rift when you got the game right here, you know?
Yeah.
Just play that one out. It's like, oh crap, I didn't factor in they had an extra Rabadons in that play. Okay, we're back.
Yeah, I looked wrong on the timer. Oh, okay.
All right, next one. When it comes to the draft, who's most likely to get put on a champ that they're not necessarily the most comfortable with, but still be able to do pretty okay?
Radley.
I was gonna say if Bradley's complaining about Spawn not letting him play what he wants to play in that, joking haha way, then I feel like that also means that Bradley is a player that is willing to play things for the team's sake.
Yeah, I mean, Bradley's also been one of the players that I feel like last year, one of his big goals during Summer Proving Grounds was to not feel as though he was being carried across the finish line by the rest of his team. And he felt like he did better in Summer than he did in Spring. He was definitely just kind of the 5th player of Team Liquid Academy in Spring 2022. But this is also, we're kind of saying, I don't want to say return to that, because I feel like Bradley has leveled up quite a bit since that time. But because this meta has been so bot lane focused, it really hasn't been about the cool things that Bradley does in most of their games. Well, sometimes he will pop off. Most times he's playing the Sejuani, the Sion. He's playing the same kind of champions that Tenacity did. And like, if Tenacity's going to do it, I guess I have to do it too.
Pretty much.
All right, next question. In our next game, who's most likely able to steal away a dragon or a baron?
So the last steal was...
Okay. I know what my answer is this one. I'm going to wait for Gabby.
Yeah,
Y'all have been aligned on everything so far, honestly.
Yeah, it's been pretty close.
We got the caster hive mind, you know?
Yeah, I feel like... I feel like I want to give some love over to CLG side and say, like, Heavy's gonna steal one, depending on pick. Just be able to get in there. They had Meech do it last time. I feel like it's also because I feel like Team Liquid has been playing really much in the driver's seat, so the steal would come from the CLG side. So that's why I also am kind of going to a CLG player if I'm in line with the fact that TL is going to keep driving things.
I'm going to go with Arrow, actually. And one of the big reasons why I think Arrow is because, one, he's played a lot of Jinx.
I was like, it's going to be a super mega death rock.
And I also, whenever I think of like big steals that happened so far this season, the big one that comes to mind is Arrow playing Draven. He throws out a blind whirling death and steals Infernal Soul. So... like, it turned around the game from being, like, even to, like, oh my god, Team Liquid are so far ahead. And Arrow just has, like, a pretty good idea of when these dragons are going to be going down. He has a remarkably high percentage of actually taking things with his ultimate.
I'm trying to think, too, of who he can play. So there's, you know, you have Jinx as an option for that. Maybe an Ezreal pops out, then you got True Shot Barrage that can do that. Just looking at
his classic Draven, right? It is one of these things that he always goes for.
Whirling Death all the way through. I mean, technically, if you bring out, like, a Jhin or something, you could curtain call over a little bit. It's not really one that...
We got options! Yeah, we got all the options. I love that. All right, the next question kind of starts off on a power note, but then goes to a highlight, I promise. In this series, who's most likely to take the loss, but get to join us on broadcast next week?
Ooh, okay. All right. With the way that we have seen them play so far, I think I didn't feel this way at the beginning of the day, but I now feel as though Team Liquid are probably actually favored to win this series. Meaning that the person that I want most to actually join us on the broadcast is, I actually think that Copy would be fantastic to actually have on the broadcast. He's a very eloquent guy, very well-spoken, and has a lot of like quiet confidence to come through. I remember Jenkins used to be this massive trash talker and used to be hilarious on interviews when he was on Team Liquid Academy way back in the day. But Copy, I feel, has just been very serious, has a lot of insightful things to say, and hopefully we actually get a chance to bring him onto a broadcast.
I was going to say Copy too. I feel like I want to give props. I want to give props to someone else though as well, because it's always good to highlight different players that can come through. I mean, APA, I feel like is always fun and pretty vocal when, you know, whether in a podcast setting or otherwise. This would require...
I will say, Bradley is funnier.
I was going to say, I think Bradley would be a good shout, but they're going to have to lose 2 games for that to happen.
Do you want an educational vibe or a humor-based vibe?
I just have to say, when APA came on to the Raising an 8 podcast, we did like one of those axes where it's like, how much would you kick their butt versus how much do you want to fight them? And he put everyone like, I would kick their butt, but I don't want to fight anybody. Bradley would be like, top right, every single person, I'm going to kick their butt and I'm going to fight them. So, like, that's the kind of person that Bradley is.
I think so. I don't know.
See, I would also fight everybody, so I'm going to say Bradley then. So that we can get some hands thrown.
All right, well, the last and final question, I am going to disappear as y'all discuss it, because our draft is ready. It was going to be who's going to win this series. Team Liquid is up 1, so CLG definitely have some work ahead of them, but let's see if they can make it possible.
Let's find out. And as far as who's going to win this series, so I'm sure draft will impact to a degree how we feel this game is going to follow through. If I'm going off of...
We don't need to see the draft. We already know what the entire draft is going to be, right? Do you not just have that playing in your head the entire time?
True. So that means that Mir is going to take something that can be good in the early game too. Maybe some Elise comes there and just spends all the time in all the lanes. No Lee Sin though for Mir, and
True.
that's the only jungle focused ban. Yeah, you know what? I changed the channel accidentally in my head, so I already forgot all of the prediction
monkey
part.
with symbols.
Yep.
I'm on that channel a lot too. It's a good one.
It's the channel I'm on, so I don't have predictive ability anymore. Whoops.
Well, we'll see how it ends up going. We'll see if we can flick things back onto the right channel. We do see the Sejuani coming through. We saw Jenkins play this last game. We know Kevy can play it, but Kevy tends to try and play more magic damage junglers, more junglers that can be really impactful early on. It's part of why the Elise was giving them a lot of success earlier on in the season. But it's also kind of worth noting the number of kind of target bans that we have been seeing, right? Senna has been growing in priority, and of course, the Rumble specific target ban at Jenkins, who has been our most prolific Rumble player so far. But as the Sejuani gets picked up, we are seeing one of the classics, the Aphelios plus Thresh, and this is almost definitely a Xayah and a Rakan, two very powerful bottom lanes, and Meech and Breezy trying to take a little bit more control over the game by being stronger at level 1.
Meech specifically on this Xayah 100% win rate across 6 games on the pick. So CLG, when you are down a game against Team Liquid, making sure that you get some comfort. That's honestly the way a lot of teams go when your back is against the wall and you're facing elimination territory. So you've got the Sejuani that Kevy has actually played a decent amount with 3 wins and 1 loss thus far. Still some flexibility for that pick as well. A very standard bot lane. Rakan rising in prominence within the meta because of the engage potential. For Team Liquid, though, you're keeping Mir on the J4. You've got the Thresh and Aphelios combo and working off of what Kim Down was able to do in game 1. I think we're very much looking at that support position and saying who or what is this newer player going to be able to do in this kind of playoff format when a lot is riding on. So if Kim Down can keep up that playmaking ability now on the Thresh, then TL have some confidence in which they can go into this game.
And we have to mention that Kim Down did not have a good game 1. There were multiple times where he looked at it and saying, damn, if that had gone a little bit better, Team Liquid would have blown apart some of the early game fights. But really turned around later on, and Thresh was one of the characters that Team Liquid have been very excited has come back into the meta because it was one of Kim Down's best champions when they were playing at UC Irvine, and has become one of the characters that they have been looking quite good on so far this split as well. And going into the Rakan, you have a lot of small interactions where Thresh can come out ahead, but does need to be on their toes in order to get those plays to knock the grand entrance away. And as Team Liquid take their next character, it is going to be the Ahri locked in here for APA.
Mid lane starting to bring some units through, so we get a little bit more intel on at least one half of that matchup. So CLG now working off of that as they get these last lock-ins. And I think that when talking about Kim Down kind of having some moments early on that were a little questionable, but then warming up into later stages of the game in playoffs, you do kind of have to think about that continuous line and coming off of that good play in the end of last game and hopefully infusing it with this comfort pick here in game number 2. Copy's response to the Ahri getting locked in is the Zoe.
Yeah, and it's been interesting to listen to APA talk about the Zoe being played, right? He talks about how Balulu, potentially the best Zoe in the world, and playing up against Balulu Zoe is an entirely different beast to playing up against Copy Zoe. But Copy is one of our better Zoes that we do have in the Challengers League. It is going to be going here into APA's Ahri. But this is very much a matchup that is very, very volatile. If one of them starts getting a couple of kills early on the other one, then it becomes very difficult for either of these characters to try and come back because of how oppressive the damage differential does become. As we do see the Sion getting locked in here for Jenkins, it pushes the Sejuani down into the jungle, and Bradley going back to the Ornn. I've been waiting for this character to come back as an answer to the Sion, as a lot of tools to be aggressive and wins a lot of these trades because you can cancel the, the Decimating Smash coming out from Sion multiple times and really put it on the back foot and use that opportunity to walk away.
So the top lane will have some ways of using this Ornn to try and offset Sion, what he can bring through. What do you make of the rest of it, Joshi? This is CLG's last stand, potentially. If they drop this game, they're out of it.
I actually, once again, I really like CLG's draft this time. It is very clearly a front to back. My one concern that I have with the CLG draft is if Copy does not have a good early and middle game, it is so much pressure being put onto Meech, right? You have to kill Bradley and Mir. You don't have an opportunity to try and kill Arrow and Kim down because he has to be hitting the front line the entire time. So while I like CLG's position coming through here, they need to make sure that Copy is a relevant damage threat so that they can actually start threatening Arrow and Kim down later on in the game.
Well, let's find out if that threat becomes reality in game number 2 of CLG Challengers versus Team Liquid Challengers in the lower brackets. And somebody's going to be moving on. Somebody will not. The bot lane of CLG joining Kevy over in the jungle currently. We've seen so many more early invades and things of the like, considering the changes in the recent patch.
Yep. And there you go. APA's dad coming through once again. Mr. Stearns. Is it Stearns? Stearns? I don't remember. Either way, someone will correct me. It has been a good game. APA did have a fantastic game 1 going up against Copy this time around. I mean, we have been seeing a ton of growth coming out from APA so far throughout this year. A lot of people are asking, just like we were looking at Copy as like, hey, this guy should probably be promoted to the LCS. We were looking at APA as like, hey, this guy should probably have an opportunity to play Academy/Challengers, and has definitely had a strong start to their career as they move up to this next level. And as you start getting into it, taking down Copy here, having a good laning phase would give us a lot more faith in this player as we start looking towards the rest of playoffs.
Right.
Hello, Challengers League.
Yeah, Challengers League popping on in, hanging out with us here on the B stream for CLG versus Team Liquid. What a time to come in right at the beginning as we're getting things started. And I think when Joshi, you're talking about that mid lane matchup between Copy and APA, and there's such an emphasis on these players, not just on how they perform within the team context, but also showcasing on an individual level when you're looking to get promoted and extend your career in different ways and show that evolution. Standing in your lane very effectively against somebody who has created a name for themselves on this NACL level for quite some time is a great way for APA to really make a mark, though already building that reputation over the many years on this competitive side.
Yeah, there's also quite a bit of backstory between a lot of these players as well. We haven't touched on it yet, but both coaches, Spawn for Team Liquid and Juves here for CLG. I mean, they have been good friends, and Mir looking for a first blood topside.
Oh, was my prediction correct? Is Mir gonna get the first blood against Jenkins as Jenkins slow walks it away under the turret?
Mir?
Flashes for the knockup. Mir unsuccessful in the execution, but they do get a summoner spell. Flash for flash.
Yeah, I love the idea, getting the red buff down to try and chase down Jenkins. Unfortunately, as soon as the flag goes down, the flash comes out from Jenkins, does find themselves a way out, and it doesn't even really give Bradley this large health advantage to really play with, because it was so much aggression being put out from Bradley, taking the worst of some of these early trades. But at the very least, the wave is in a fairly decent position for Bradley, and Kevy has not had an opportunity to respond.
Already a little bit of the advantage in CS and wanting to push that a bit more, as after that Mir intervention on the top side, Jenkins and Bradley will be left to their lonesome for some time as the junglers return to farming status. You can see Kevy rotating over on that bot side. A very common tactic: come through, take the scuttle, and then maybe get some attempt to gather some intel in the red side jungle as Mir is making the rotation over towards this blue. And there's the word dropping over from Kevy.
Yeah, and a couple updates for the bracket for everybody, since we did have the Challengers League come through. If you were not watching that before, we did have 2-2-0s, Wildcard and FlyQuest beating TSM Challengers and AoE respectively, whereas over here we had Golden Guardians beating Immortals 2-1. But Kim down, trying to defend his own blue buff here, as might be getting a little bit caught.
There's the stun, follow up from Breezy. Locks on some of that shielding onto Kevy, and Meech over the wall if there was some intervention needed, but it's CLG that gets a position around this blue buff to draw it out and claim it for themselves.
Yeah, and so Mir, I mean, his flash in the early game towards the top side of the map, not necessarily giving a whole lot of advantages, and also being pushed out of his bottom side. We'll have to go back and clean up some of the camps over on the top side of the map. But we also got to check in. We were saying that Meech and Breezy picked the Zyra Khan to be very aggressive build advantages in the bottom side of the map. That has not yet happened for them. And Arrow and Kim down, they will be able to push back a little bit and have a small advantage as Mir. They're still kind of hunting to try and find their way back in. This Jarvan is a character that does really rely on having strong early game pathing. And Mir going to be going right on over to the Dragon is...
Turn to pull over into the Dragon Pit, but not really
nice
a window
idea
to fully commit.
Yeah, I really like the idea coming out for Team Liquid to actually go for that play, to use everybody to jump over the wall, try and take the Dragon out of line of sight. But a little bit too fast on the Lantern Pole does mean the Arrow's on the wrong side, and they do need to back away to protect him. But again, so far, we saw this before. Bradley doing a really good job in both lane matchups in order to try and make sure that they have a lead up against Jenkins now that they have no flash. And so, Team Liquid, they don't have the same kind of early lead, but so much of the last game was based around how people were fighting around the Rift Herald.
That's where that first big fight happened, where both teams rotated up the entirety of their roster to set up for that fight. And now with the junglers kind of getting their opportunity to reset, Mir going for the back and Kevy hovering around before rotating out. Jenkins and Bradley are left once again to their 1v1. And yes, we've talked about how much of a threat Jenkins is in the lane and how oppressive he can be. And for Bradley to make sure to take a pick to stand strong against this Scion. Try and keep himself alive, though, as Kevy comes in for the intervention. A good sidestep of the wind-up from Jenkins for Bradley to stay in it without expelling any summoners.
Yeah, I mean, good job from Bradley to get out of that one as another engaged bottom lane.
Nice turn to bring Arrow out of it after the ignite from Breezy.
Really nice lantern placement there from Kim Down, actually, making sure they don't put it on top of all of the champions so that you can put it off to the side. Makes it a lot easier to click. And you have to pay a little bit more attention to actually block it out with some more. So small things from Kim Down showcasing experience with that champion.
And all the while, Copy was coming on down to the Dragon Pit to try and check to see if that was being started up. But there was that ward by Team Liquid, so they had knowledge on this rotation. After Copy left back to lane, Team Liquid start up this Dragon and pull some of the objective control for themselves early with the first claim.
Yeah. Good stuff from Team Liquid. No kills coming through. Still waiting to see if our predictions will ring true. We did say that Mir would get it onto Breezy, but without a whole lot of attention from Mir towards the bottom side of the map, it is starting to look a little bit more like our previous series of Chad and Rosethorn, where Kevy is now getting a fairly sizable CS lead already in the jungle and trying to prevent Mir from really having the same kind of impact that they did in the first game. But this is something that Team Liquid have done very well, even during the time as Team Liquid Academy. They are moving everybody as their reset to start going towards the top side of the map, and Meech will be getting a bit of a push before even having a chance to rotate over. Team Liquid, instead, it looks like they might be giving this one up, just because Arrow is already starting to walk down towards the bottom side.
A bit of a different look for them with not as much commitment over towards this Rift Herald. It means that Kevy is the first to step up to it and start chunking down. There is that ward in the pit, so Team Liquid are aware of this take. There's nothing for them to trade on the opposite side as that previous Dragon was so recent. So instead, just don't want to leave an opening for CLG to really crack this game open.
Yeah. I mean, but remember, I mean, Team Liquid, they went for a couple of early plays and really got punished for it now, and so CLG, they're just moving everybody back down to the bottom side of the map. Arrow and Kim down, for despite the fact that we were praising them so much for the early laning phase, are still a little bit behind. Kind of as we were expecting with the Zarya Rakan actually coming through once again. But a very straightforward game coming through. And we said that the one thing that CLG really needed to do to be in a strong position for this upcoming game was to make sure that Copy was fine, right? And he is only down less than a wave of farm at this point. Copy is currently doing just fine, and that's going to be allowing him to be a major threat up against Arrow and Kim down later on as we start setting up for more objectives.
Both junglers hanging around the mid lane. Good charm onto Copy, but the responding ultimate is also good to land. Nobody dying just yet. APA brought down low, but Copy, with the help of Kevy, could get out of what was looking very close for a moment.
Yeah, but nobody ends up going down in that longer exchange, and so as both mid laners are going to be potentially backing away, Copy staying on the map, does get to choose what to do with the wave, and could potentially look for a roam, but choosing instead to stay in the mid lane. It is worth noting, though, that APA, as we were already talking about before, is playing up against one of the players that we have had in our most valuable prospect list for multiple splits in a row. Like, he's always kind of been in that conversation as we start looking towards the performance for Copy. I mean, I think everybody was kind of expecting that at the very least, Cloud9 Challengers would have kept him around, potentially even promoted him to the LCS, but then Menace and Diplex came through, and Copy had to find a new home. Was the only member to come into CLG this year as a new player, and so far has been looking pretty good.
And of all the players to come in as the only one with the surrounding roster, when already talked up as one of the strongest prospects across this league, then you're working in the strength of that built-in synergy on the CLG squad, but bringing in a component that will definitely elevate it just because of what Copy can offer. So CLG see what they can make happen this game, and it's not just the singular threat of Copy they have. Meech and Breezy being on this Rakan and Xayah combo, 100% win rate on both of those picks. So very comfortable. And I think something that Team Liquid are aware of is we're getting some crashing between APA and Copy across this mid lane, and Heavy and Breezy still in the vicinity.
Yeah. I gotta admit, Gabby, I'm getting bored. Where are the fights?
Yeah,
where are the big opportunities to go for anything? I think hopefully our next one's going to happen in about a minute, as we do have the next dragon actually spawning. A small advantage there for Team Liquid. Small gold advantage going over to CLG. And I'm expecting, or hoping rather, that CLG will use this Rift Herald effectively in order to create some space in the mid lane, potentially the bottom lane, to pull people away from Team Liquid. And so, as we look at this one of the things that Copy was really good at doing when they actually won with this Zoe up against Cloud9 was he wasn't very good at getting a lot of kills in that game, but he was incredibly good at pushing Team Liquid back from every single objective. And now we start to line up for an extended siege phase. It is going to be another spot where Copy can just start looking to chunk out people even if they don't die.
12 seconds on the clock before this dragon spawns. Meech still down bot farming, wanting to push that up so that CLG can grant themselves control of the lane surrounding dragon. And now up Team Liquid, also keeping themselves clustered together. They have the blast cone to get into it. Here's the Rift Herald dropping from CLG, the one that was uncontested by Team Liquid prior, gets the slam for some additional plate action, and it also means that CLG are first into the river here. But you have to be so careful.
Yeah, Arrow does need to regroup with the rest of the team. It is still a very front-to-back style game, and Copy, that's his ultimate used, as no further damage is going to be going down onto Mir, but CLG, they are here first. They go on APA.
Oh, Kevy was looking for the lockup, and even the charm. There's so much lockdown. Copy the one to pull first blood, putting Mir to sleep. They cannot follow up, but still, we said Mir was going to be the first one to get the kill, and I think with the J4, I was still thinking that coming out of draft, but in this case, it's CLG.
Yeah, CLG, I mean, they set up first. They lock down APA. Need to be a bit more respectful of the setup, because Team Liquid weren't really setting up for that fight at all. They're like, maybe we can test this, maybe we don't. You got to be more confident within that in order to try and make some of these plays happen. And Team Liquid ended up giving over that first blood. It goes over to Copy. The one person who we need to say is okay is now more than okay. CLG need to be very aware, right? Because we also remember that in Game 1, there was a lot of money getting picked up by CLG off of some botched Team Liquid engages. And so, as we start looking at the rest of this game, we need to make sure that those shutdowns don't go on over to the players on Team Liquid who would benefit from them most.
So now, 14 minutes in, CLG winning out on that last play. How worried are you for Team Liquid that Mir hasn't been able to find those windows here on the J4 to have some early plays happen?
Worried, I'm not super sure, because they still have the Orin on their team, right? They still have plenty of good scaling. When you have seen what Aphelios can do when they are very strong, when they do get later onto the game, and Arrow already with the Bloodthirster completed has the shield to try and survive some of the early bursts that will be coming out from the Zoe. And now CLG, they're also setting up for this Rift Herald. Mir's coming around, and it looks like Team Liquid are more inclined to fight this one.
Before, it was just a bit closer. They weren't as worried about losing that first Rift Herald. This time around, they don't want things to snowball for CLG. So just even presence being enough for CLG to not take a play that's completely unnecessary before they can group up. Now that they are grouped up, and they have Sion that can come in from the top, him down, has to flash away, but ends up getting ulted. Meech with the kill credit on this one, and Jenkins already being bursted so much. Arrow unlocked from the lane and brought into these fights, but CLG still just getting them off of it onto the Rift Herald, are able to bully away Team Liquid off of the kill of their support.
Yeah, CLG, they pick up another Rift Herald, they get the kill there onto Kim down, and now, I mean, the question then becomes, how does Team Liquid try and bounce back from this one, right? Bradley not able to frontline for the rest of his team. CLG just picking off individual members because they don't really have a true tank coming through here for Team Liquid. The closest that they have is definitely the Jarvan. But so far, we're seeing Copy. He's doing such a good job putting these bubbles in places where you have to respect them. Even if you aren't necessarily going to get hit by them outright, you can't walk up.
And because of that positioning and CLG coming out on top in that fight, that worry of them snowballing, if you're looking at the side of Team Liquid, you're just getting a little more worried about the pressure that they can offer, because now suddenly you're getting all these mythics online, you're getting the itemization just going up and up and up. They already were able to take that second dragon, so any of that stacking is no longer an early momentum option for Team Liquid. And CLG, we've talked about how much of a threat they are as a team in general. So this isn't some super duper underdog team that's looking to make their fight. It's a team that's shown their potential and their strength that's now making a stand in game 2.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the day, I definitely would have said that I'm expecting CLG to have the advantage in this series, but based off of game 1, you know, Team Liquid are looking fire some of the later game team fights. It is still something where, as we look at Team Liquid, because of the way that they have been playing so far throughout the regular season, they have been so focused on their early games that it really allows them to like either win or lose kind of in the first 15 minutes of the game. But they're also a team that has kind of famously said, we are not going to reset scrims if we find ourselves in a really awkward situation. We need to be able to play our way out, and the best way to do that is to just get experience from playing while they're down. And so Team Liquid, they are now looking to use all that experience that they have built up, going against one of the teams that they have scrimmed the most, and potentially trying to do something unexpected that CLG won't be ready for.
Unexpected. One of my favorite parts of playoffs, Joshi. I feel like there's always some, just on a general level, some of that always comes through in the playoffs. So see if we can see it on a micro level in these games. Heavy finding Mir here, has the flag to get away, but
Kim down.
The stun up and the follow-up here from Breezy. Kim down, the first to fall. Spelled the ultimate on that retreat as well. Bradley trying to build up a condition for Team Liquid by pushing this wave on that bot side. Team Liquid have yet to pick up a turret of their own. And doing so when there's 25 seconds to go on this next dragon would be a nice place to be. But over on the top side is still where most of the teams remain. That Rift Herald being dropped down by CLG.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to be a little bit desperate here for Team Liquid, right? You really need a couple more levels on Bradley for him to start giving out those all-important ornaments to equalize some of this gold lead, buy his team a lot more time on the map. But in order to do that, Bradley has to continue split pushing for a little while longer. He needs to continue hitting these minions all on his own. And it's starting to feel as though CLG, they're just setting up a little bit better. They're playing the pressure game. They're asking, in particular, of the newest member here for Team Liquid, are you going to be positioning correctly the entire time? Are you going to give us a window to actually hit? And now Team Liquid, they're not going to be playing for this upcoming dragon. Instead, they're going to be trying to pull people from CLG towards the top side, where at least Team Liquid might have a little bit of setup.
We've seen already today just how much a team can make happen off of a good thresh hook, off of just a really prime engage from one of the members of the Team Liquid side. It's just difficult with CLG mounting over 4,000 gold lead for themselves right before this 3-minute mark. Jenkins saw the approaching Team Liquid and decided to wind up for a little bit of a knock by some collapsing pressure from the rest of the team if they so desire. Instead, they don't want to step up to this dragon. They want to go ahead and keep pressuring over on mid. The splitting of the dragons before means there's less of a strong desire from them to have to take that dragon number 3 of the game. So they take the tier 2.
That's a lot of gold, though, that they're giving up, and a lot of map pressure. And CLG, they're still going. They're saying, hey, I mean, you didn't back in time. Almost an entire inhibitor turret might be going down. Bradley has to ult just to save it.
Yep, Horn to try to get them off. Heavy knocked up. Breezy with the shielding and more. Mir going in, gets the Cataclysm on to Heavy. And the teleport coming in from Team Liquid to try and make sure that they can keep the numbers somewhat even, considering that Mir has fallen.
Yeah. A really questionable decision by Team Liquid, punished very heavily here by CLG. I love the fact that they went for the 3rd turret to try and take that one down. And now Bradley, the only person here, it's a little tough to dive him. He is very tanky.
Very tanky and very sleepy. Hook onto one and Charm onto Breezy as well. He has to get on out of there after getting so burned, but the burn is good. APA with the kill credit here. I mean, when you got Landry's, you're able to finish him off. So CLG just losing 1 though in that. They still have such an advantage in this game.
Yeah, still up 5,000 gold, and Team Liquid still looking to try and find their way back in. Arrow still needs to find more money. Is, I mean, maybe about halfway, like not even, towards getting that 2nd item completed, whereas if you look across at Meech already, getting close to having that 2nd item done. At the very least, Bradley has got another level since we last checked in, and really needs to start getting those Ornn upgrades for the rest of his team. And APA actually farming very well. We haven't really looked at it because of how strong CLG setups have gone. But APA, I mean, more than 10 CS per minute at this point in Team Liquid. They have a lot of tempo on the map, and they're trying to do a Fnatic Death Rush, but there's no reason for CLG to even come over here yet.
Yeah, CLG, they don't feel pressure to move anywhere that they don't want to go right now necessarily. Turret advantage for them, 4 already taken down. The gold lead still stabilized, and Team Liquid not as much in the driver's seat as they were towards portions of game number 1 here.
Yep. So, we'll see what CLG can do to bounce back. At the beginning of the day, I was going to say that CLG probably going to be favored going into this one, even if Team Liquid feel like they've learned quite a bit over the course of the season, whereas CLG, again, everybody kind of praises them. They took down Cloud9 2-0 not that long ago as one of the best teams that we have. I think almost everybody would agree they're probably our favorites going into playoffs. But I mean, the way that Team Liquid bounced back in Game 1, there's still opportunities, I feel, for Team Liquid, but a lot of them are really riding on the hopes of one of their most veteran players in Arrow, who really needs to find some of these positions to try and hit, and doesn't have their reset opportunities like they did on the Jinx.
And harder to find those chances when you're kind of pressured over onto your side of the map. You haven't been able to extend too much vision. It's CLG that are moving through. This Baron's been up. It's still early. It's almost 23 minutes, but CLG, they've been hovering around to just try and get that warding down. Try and draw some of Team Liquid out if necessary, because we still got a minute and a half before the dragon spawns, but not a desire to step up to this Baron yet unless some kind of pick happens.
Yeah, and the threat for CLG onto the Baron is not insignificant. They do have a Xayah who will be doing quite a bit of damage, but it's not the scariest thing in the world, right? Because you do have a couple of tanks. They will take a little while to do it, so Shwani helps out with that, but it's still a lot of damage, and it's not as though Team Liquid are lacking for engage tools. You still have the ultimate coming out from Bradley. You still have Mir who can just dive on in. And now, APA trying to get a push here, but there are more people than I think either team are expecting.
What he can find, gets the charm onto one and throws out the orb for additional damage, but the stun up onto Kim Down, knock up and root and more. Mir is eliminated. Kim Down going on in, another charm onto Breezy, double kill coming in for Meech. CLG want to leech all the lives from everyone on TL that's on this top side. And even with the responding charm, CLG out on top with 2 kills. Still have Bradley pushing over on that bot part and Arrow down mid, but enough deaths for Team Liquid mean that CLG now have that agency to start up the Baron.
Yeah, Team Liquid, they have Bradley. At least they'll get a couple of kills effectively by taking down the structure, but nearly 6,000, or nearly 7,000, over 6,000 gold behind at this point. CLG are just in total control of the entire map. They've already picked up the Baron buff for themselves. They've only got the one dragon, but it's not as though Team Liquid are putting pressure that way. And I love the fact that CLG, they're looking for these opportunities, and they're really pressuring the low-income members of the team. Down and Mir constantly being the ones to try and screen, create some space for APA and Aero to actually start getting some of this money, but CLG are there in force. They're happy to give up over this bottom lane turret because they just need the tempo of killing people to do the Baron.
Even with those attempts from Down and Mir, as you mentioned, to create that space for that damage output, still difficult for APA more to find the windows. You're seeing these charms hits, you're seeing the Q blast through, but still CLG continuing to have control over this game, as now they focus down on what's the second Drake for them to just even the score in that regard. But their focus, as they have the Rally Cry Baron buff, is to keep pushing down these lanes and grant themselves some more turret pressure. Already accumulated 5 compared to the 2 that Team Liquid have eradicated, and waiting for this bot lane, or the bot wave rather, to meet them so that the push still continues good.
So, I mean, as this push is going to be getting fully underway, I mean, Team Liquid, they're starting to run out of time. They only have the one super Ornn item coming through as the Baron minions are largely cleared out. Jenkins is still pushing over in the middle of the map. We'll be able to crash that relatively soon. And you have to remember, Arrow still doesn't have a mythic item, right? Doesn't have one to upgrade. You have to give the super Ornn item over here to APA. And because of how far behind APA currently is finding themselves, even with all the farm they've gotten, so many CLG members have gotten so much ambient gold from these structures that you're never going to be able to kill Jenkins.
Yeah, Scions later on just get tankier and tankier and tankier. And CLG Bradley, that's who you need to be able to stand in front, and already marked down to 50% HP. Calls upon the Ornn Horn. A nice sidestep, though, from the members of CLG. No connect. The play that Team Liquid are looking for to try and turn this on its head hasn't really become apparent just yet. And now with the Baron empowered minions across the mid lane, that's a turret going on down, and that's a naked inhib ready for the taking. Yep. Potentially blasting open 2 because of CLG's positioning across these lanes. Exhaust and more brought down onto Bradley, but CLG continue up with the pressure.
Yeah, and ultimately CLG, they don't care about any of the potential engaged threats from Team Liquid because they gotta go for it. It's on Team Liquid to try and stop this Baron push, but nearly a 10,000 gold lead at this point. CLG have gotten almost everything they came here for, as a second inhibitor is actually going to fall. Team Liquid, they don't have the call of the Forge God, and CLG will get both major objectives, will be backing away, and Gabby's looking very rapidly like we're going to be going to a game 3.
Yeah, that push was good just in time for the expiration of the Baron buff, and CLG just really want to push this to game number 3. Hard to see any openings for Team Liquid when this is what happens. Mir's just looking to go through the jungle, and there's all this lockdown by CLG. Kim down, can't get out of there, has to try to touch the hips of APA and the team so that CLG can follow. But Joshi, my goodness, even with the singular picks, CLG, they're just really rocking it this time out.
Yeah, the pressure style that Copy allows CLG to play while he's playing the Zoe is paying off dividends. You see, he actually almost has no KP, right? He actually has not been having a whole lot of success in actually having good KDAs when he plays this character. But you slowly poke and prod, you ask Team Liquid question after question after question, and then eventually Team Liquid find themselves in really awkward situations. It allows for Breezy and Meech to start looking for these engages onto Mir, onto Kim down. Is why, I mean, APA side once, but the other 6 deaths are on these 2 low-income members because CLG is asking, what are you going to do? And so far, Team Liquid has not had an answer. I'll be honest, I know Mir has been a fantastic bruiser player in the past, but this Jarvan has not been able to do a whole lot for both the past 2 games.
But Breezy's doing plenty.
Breezy's doing a lot
to get APA away, but still, even when you're not killing, it's just CLG continually trying to push them back, get resources out of them. And yeah, I think it's a great call out when looking at Copy and the way he's been able to affect the positioning of Team Liquid in a lot of these fights. And we're going to continue to look at that as the entirety of CLG are knocking on the door once more. Jenkins remaining in the mid lane. with these waves pushing forward. Remember, those 2 inhibs are down. Arrow wanting to try to get some initial poke with the Moonlight Vigil, but nothing. Yep, look, everyone's still basically at full.
Yeah. Wow, I mean, that's a problem when Arrow on 2 items is basically doing nothing, trying to find these little bits of damage, but it still is CLG who are asking the questions, who are poking and prodding. They can back away for the Dragon if they ever want to, but they definitely want to break down this inhibitor turret before they have to actually leave. So Team Liquid desperately trying to farm up. They're giving APA 2 waves of farm. He's getting the mid lane, he's getting the bottom lane as well. It's part of why he's the highest level in the entire game. They're giving APA so much money on the map. But I mean, the question is going to be, can AP actually carry this one? He's got a couple targets to go for, but he desperately needs his Rabadons if he wants to do any damage, whereas Arrow still doesn't have a Mythic to upgrade yet. We've actually seen that Kim Down has gotten the next upgrade from Bradley.
APA's got the 2 sticks, but no hat yet, and Arrow neading a bit more.
They're like sewing needles.
Yeah, the, little, knitting, right?
Knitting, that's the word.
Like, what's the one with the two sticks and, I saw somebody making one that you can actually walk around with, and APA, maybe that's what he needs to be able to traverse across this map. Yep, there's the hat. Knitting done, fully donned and ready for the winter, because CLG have definitely put them in a cold spot, not giving Team Liquid much room to warm up across this. That gold lead now pretty big. Charm over on the side onto Kevy, but Kevy is on the Sejuani, so a lot of times when that's the only type of target you're able to access as Team Liquid, it's difficult to find their angle in these fights, and CLG are looking to find their own. Yeah,
and Ari, unfortunately, not looking to have the damage necessary at this point in the game. It really is supposed to be about Arrow, but he is down 4 levels compared to AP at this point because of how much Team Liquid have put into one player. The 3rd inhibitor does fall, and Arrow gets sleepy as we see CLG. They will be backing away Copy before potentially teleporting him back, as all 3 inhibitors are going to be down. CLG looking to end the game.
That they are. Copy coming in off of the teleport. CLG getting some whittling down onto the Nexus turret. They've got the wave here. Asleep onto 1, but that really just temporarily puts Kim Down out of this, and I like that CLG, they're not really forcing any engage until they find a good moment. A stun up onto Bradley off of Kevy's ultimates. But really the positioning from Team Liquid means that there's no one really exposed on the squishier side, APA and Arrow. But it feels like they can feel the walls closing in upon them. The second elimination of that inhibitor. Can they make something happen off of the ultimate here? No, Bradley, and still going to sleep immediately after it.
APA looking for Copy.
Now Copy's separated. Here we go. Bradley burned down to low, but Breezy the charm to try to set this up for Copy to get the burst down. APA and Mir taken on out of it. CLG, the lock onto Jenkins, but that's the beefiest member. Breezy trying to get into the backline to get access of Arrow, but Bradley looks to be the next victim, and when you take down the biggest front line of them all and force him back into the fountain, everyone else becomes that much more exposed. CLG pushing this series to game number 3.
Yeah. Bradley didn't die a single time that game, but that's actually a huge credit to the way that CLG was able to play that one out. They were putting pressure on Mir, they're putting pressure on Kim Down basically the entire game through. Team Liquid didn't really have an answer, and Gabby, this is our second game 3 that we're going to here on this stream. These guys are here to play. Both matches have been tightly contested, and we need to see how Team Liquid bounces back.
We knew this was going to be a tight matchup between these two teams, so very much an expectation for game 3 with that. Even though it was looking like Team Liquid had a really rocking game number 1. But we'll have to find out which one puts the nice bow on this matchup to continue progressing through the bracket. We'll see you in a few minutes.